meetings and guard recommendations. If it goes well, it's good press for the facility. Meeting wraps up, everyone starts filing out, except Yu Song. The director stops him. Before leaving, Yu Seonil glances back, suspicious. Then the doors close. Yu Seong asks what he can do for the director. The man straightens Yu Song's tie, says it was crooked, and then mentions he's always wondered what someone of Yu Song's background is doing in a place like this. He says he finally figured it out. It's about his father, Congressman Kong Man-tai, the president's biggest political rival, the very man who created this facility. The director smiles and asks whether they should really be treating such a valuable son this way, and suggests maybe Yu Seong should be excused from the public service assignment entirely. Outside, the buses are rolling out through the open gates. On board, Minsu asks his friends if they've seen his brother. Senju figures he's on another bus, then glances sideways and asks who the person next to Minsu is. Minsu looks over. Some guy he's never met in his life is fast asleep on his shoulder. Comfortable choice. Someone grabs a cooking ladle and asks what they're supposed to do next. The cooks aren't sure where to even start, because outside the situation has already turned into a full-scale war against the mud. The village got hit hard by the recent rains, record-breaking floods that left the whole area underwater. Minsu's group moves in with a clear objective: clear the murky water and salvage what they can. Some inmates go house to house checking for anything still usable. Others look at the electrical systems, swapping out fuses where needed. The cooks hand out food to whoever's around. Meanwhile, the guy who'd been sleeping on Minsu's shoulder is finally awake, yawning, leaning on his hand, wondering out loud how he ended up here. And watching Minsu work, it's hard not to notice something. The guy leads naturally. People just follow him. He's not trying to, it's just how it goes. But he's not here by accident. There's a specific target. A man crouched over the parts of a wrecked car, concluding there's nothing left worth fixing. The white-haired figure watches from a distance, quietly waiting for the right moment to move. During the break, Minsu sits down with his meal. The texture looks suspicious enough that he almost doesn't try it, but it's actually fine, better than expected. Before he can finish, though, an argument nearby pulls his attention. An old man is refusing to leave his home. The guard explains the ground is unstable after the flooding, but the elder isn't interested in explanations. He's lived there for decades and he's not going anywhere. When the guard suggests a temporary shelter, the old man calls it uncomfortable and then goes further. He accuses the inmates of stealing his wallet, pointing directly at Seijun and grabbing him by the collar. Seijun denies it. The old man doesn't care. People like that never change, he says. Yu Seonil watches quietly and notes that this is exactly why inmates avoid public service work. One mistake from the past, and it follows you forever, no matter what you do after. To people like this old man, those young men are still criminals. Full stop. Then Moon Hyunjin steps in. Calm, polite. He asks if the missing item was a brown wallet, because he found one on the ground earlier and left it at the market. He apologizes for touching it, but he was worried the mud would take it. The old man doesn't thank him. He just says he'll go check, and warns the boy that if a single coin is missing, there will be consequences. Seijun thanks Moon Hyunjin quietly. The boy just says he told the truth. A woman comes over with a bowl of corn on the cob, offers some to the boys, and tells them not to take the old man's behavior personally. He's been like that since an accident involving some young guys on a motorcycle. Seijun takes a cob and eats. She smiles and asks if it's good. He says it's really good, and he means it. Cut to the Minyun Volunteer Services office. Guards at their desks, routine work. One of them pulls off his headphones. It's Yu Song, reassigned here after being pulled from the public service mission. He'd figured it would happen eventually. His father being a congressman wasn't exactly a secret. He remembers the director's face when he said it. That cold smile, the certainty in his voice. Yu Song was out and the director framed it as cutting the problem off before it grew. What that tells us, the director still doesn't know that Minsu and Yu Song are brothers, but Yu Seonil does. Yu Song remembers that conversation. The vice president admitted he knew that the older brother had punished the younger one that day. What Yu Song can't figure out is how he found that out, or what he actually wants. He decides he's going to get both answers. Back at the site, a guard approaches Yu Seonil. Everyone's gathered, and with another heavy rain coming, they're moving to the temporary shelter for the night. All the inmates are GPS tracked, so there's no room for any funny business. Yu Seonil looks at the sky and hopes nothing goes wrong. It does. The water rises fast, and mud starts pouring down from the mountains. A full landslide, and it hits the old man's house directly. Guards drag him away from the collapsing structure, but he fights them the whole time. Then he screams something that stops everyone cold. His wife is still inside. She couldn't get out. Her leg. Yu Seonil immediately orders a rescue team and tells everyone to keep the inmates back. The mud keeps coming. The house could go at any second. Then someone crouches down and ties their shoelace. Minsu watches and asks Ga Sejun what he thinks he's doing. The look on Sejun's face answers the question before he does. And before anyone can stop him, he's already running straight toward the house. Minsu shouts after him that it's too dangerous, but Sejun isn't turning back. The rain doesn't let up, and neither does Ga Sejun. He's already moving toward the house before Minsu can get a word in. Inside, the ceiling is losing the argument with gravity, mud pushing through every gap. Sejun kicks the door open and calls out for the old woman. Nothing. Then a small chunk of debris drops straight onto his head. Less of an injury, more of a warning about what's coming next. Outside, the woman's husband is barely being held back by the police, screaming her name into the rain. Seonil is on the phone demanding a helicopter because the roads are gone. Then his colleague delivers the update nobody wanted. Some kids went inside. When Seonil asks who, the answer is Ga Sejun, and the friend who apparently decided that watching someone walk into a collapsing house wasn't an option. Lee Min-soo went in after him. Min-soo pulls Sejun out of the way, just as the section of ceiling he'd been standing under comes down. When Sejun asks why he came in, Min-soo says it's simple. He's class leader. Some idiot was heading toward his own death, and that's his problem to deal with. He also says they can argue about it later, because they still haven't found the woman. They check the one part of the house they haven't searched yet, and that's where she is, unconscious, buried under rubble. They clear the debris off her together, and Sejun lifts her. She's still breathing. Then the rest of the structure gives out. From outside, the other kids watch the roof collapse with Sejun and Min-soo still inside. One of them doesn't just stand there. He gets his hands under the fallen structure and starts pushing. It's a heavy roof, and everyone can see what that kind of effort costs. Then a second pair of hands joins in, two of them now, straining together, veins visible on the face of the first boy. The cooking class leader is already moving, and once he does, the rest of his class follows. The maintenance crew decides they're not going to be the ones who stood around watching. Everyone gets their hands on it. Inside, Sejun sees light breaking through. They get out, both of them, and the old woman with them. The group moves fast to get her clear before what's left of the house finishes falling. They make it, and for a moment, everyone wants to celebrate. The cooking class leader shuts that down immediately and tells them to run, because the structure is still going. They clear the area just in time to watch the house come apart completely. A while later, an ambulance arrives. The husband is right beside his wife, holding her hand, telling her to hold on. She comes around confused, asking how she's still alive. He doesn't have a great answer for that, just relief. Seonil's colleague raises the obvious question. Shouldn't the boys be punished for ignoring orders? Then he adds something else. While Seonil was away, these kids changed. Not because of the adults running the program, because of what happened after Min-soo showed up. Whoever's actually getting through to them, it isn't the staff. The next day arrives like nothing happened. Clear sky, clean air, the kind of weather that makes yesterday feel like a different world. The detainees are still on public service duty, except now the volunteer women have joined them, and the villagers are looking at them differently. Someone's already trying to feed them. One of the guards protests that she shouldn't be doing that. She puts a spoonful in his mouth anyway. Nearby, a radio report mentions that Moon Hoshik, president of the Yuksung group, has once again skipped his court appearance, citing chronic illness. Some of the older men listening wave Hyujun over to eat and rest. He turns around and accepts. Elsewhere, Gasamin has shown up with fruit punch and ice, and Sejun isn't entirely surprised. He had a feeling she'd come since Yusong couldn't make it. She ruffles his hair and tells him she's proud of him for saving the old woman, especially given that he used to claim he couldn't stand elderly people. Sejun doesn't deny it. He just says he couldn't ignore someone who'd been kind to him. Samin calls it good work, then adds one condition. He needs to stop throwing himself into danger like that. Sejun looks down at the drink she brought him and doesn't argue. As night falls, the group settles into the gymnasium. 2 days left. Everyone's quiet wish is the same. Just let it end without incident. Min-soo wakes up needing the bathroom, sits up, and scans the room. Hyujun's bed is empty. He figures maybe the same reason, but something makes him look twice. Outside, in the dark, Hyujun is running through the woods, fast, breathless, and clearly not heading to the bathroom. Late night at the Citizen Services office, and Yusong is about 30 seconds away from eating instant ramen when his phone goes off. It's guard Shin Jusup, and the man is not calling to chat. He's panicking on the other end of the line, which is a problem, because whatever went wrong on Jusup's watch is going to land on him now that Yusong got demoted. Yusong's brother Min-soo is there too, and he tells Jusup to keep his voice down before the whole building hears. Then he takes a breath and delivers the news. Hyunjun is gone, possibly escaped. Somewhere across town, Hyunjun has already helped himself to a donated scarf from a clothing bin, uniform left behind, and tracked down a bus stop. He asks an older woman how to get to Yuksung Hospital. She points at the incoming bus and tells him it's about a 30-minute ride. The bus pulls up, waits, and leaves. Hyunjun doesn't get on. He scratches the back of his neck because he doesn't have a single one on him, so he needs money. Back at the office, Yusong is already tracking him. Hyunjun hasn't moved far from the public service zone. He tells Jusup to stall until dawn, but even if someone left right now, it'd be a 4-hour trip, and Jusup can't leave his post. That leaves one option. The job goes to Gasemin. As she's heading out, she glances back. Sejun is already putting his helmet on, telling her to just go. He's thinking about the apology he never got to give Hyunjin. Meanwhile, a news segment plays about the Yuksung group chairman skipping his court date. Someone nearby grumbles that he's faking it to dodge the verdict. Right next to the TV, Hyunjin is crouched by a vending machine fishing for loose change. 51. He needs 1,300 more. A bald man walks over and offers to pay him, calls it a secret friend arrangement. Somewhere fun, just the two of them. Hyunjin says the place doesn't sound very fun. Then he notices the man's expression and decides not to wait around to find out more. He runs. After putting some distance between himself and that situation, he leans against the wall to catch his breath. The last bus is leaving soon and he still has no money. That's when he spots a homeless man asleep nearby. A cup of coins.
뭐,
The idea
김우신.
forms. Hyunjin reaches for the cup and the man opens his eyes. He wasn't asleep at all. He just smiles and tells Hyunjin to take it if he needs it. Hyunjin hesitates, says the man must have it harder than him. The man looks him over and disagrees. He says just pay it back 10 times over someday, and they're square. Hyunjin takes the loan. On the other side of the city, Samin and Sejun reach the GPS coordinates and find nothing. Hyunjin has already moved. Then Sejun hears shouting nearby. 3 guys are beating someone and demanding money. He's ready to let it go and keep moving, but then Semin hears something that stops her. Hyunjin has grabbed one of the attackers and is telling them to leave the man alone. He takes a punch to the head for it. The siblings look at each other. They found him. Hyunjin wasn't letting go. He kept holding the guy back, begging him not to hit the homeless man, while the guy complained that the kid was going to ruin his clothes. Then a second member of the group wound up for a punch, and Hyunjin never saw it coming. No time to dodge. But Sejun appeared at exactly the right moment, catching the guy's arm and telling him to leave the man alone and walk away. The problem was that while Sejun was handling one of them, the others...
The Hyundai Kona is always ready to go, keeping you powered up for what's ahead. And that's why the confidence to go the distance. Keep life moving in the Hyundai Kona.
Hey, why are dishes always getting water spots? Hey, Gordon.
Where'd you get water problems? We got you covered.
Request your free in-home water test at Pelican.com.
Others had moved toward his sister, throwing out the kind of lines that make you embarrassed on their behalf. That was enough to flip a switch in Sejun. He told all 3 of them to come at him at once. They took him up on it. They probably shouldn't have. A little while later, faces swollen and thoroughly rearranged, all 3 were apologizing. Hyunjin went over to check on the homeless man, who said he was fine, that getting beaten was basically part of his daily routine, and thanked the kid for stepping in. Then Samin cut the moment short, calling Hyunjin over. She told him she had no idea what he'd been planning, but that if they headed back now, none of this would need to be reported. They could keep it quiet. Meanwhile, Samin was on the phone with Yu Seong, explaining that she'd found the fugitive, but couldn't come back right away. Something had come up. They needed to make a quick stop first. Yu Song said that was fine, but told her there was a bigger problem on their end. The warden was already in a jeep, heading out for an inspection of the public service area. The clock was running. The group arrived at the hospital and parked the bikes. Hyunjun's father was on the 16th floor, the kind of floor that doesn't get used for ordinary patients. As it turned out, the hospital itself belonged to Hyunjun's family, one of several they owned. Sejun found this increasingly hard to process. The guy had already mentioned his father owned the EVA world and the Dottie Tower, and Sejun had written it off as exaggeration. He wasn't so sure anymore. When they stepped off the elevator on the 16th floor, Sejun noticed the hallway was lined with security. He actually wondered if they'd gotten off on the wrong floor. But Hyunjun walked out calmly and told him he'd never been lying about any of it. And the moment his feet hit the corridor, every single guard bowed. Hyunjun politely asked to see his father. Back on his end, Yusong was tracking Hyunjun's location on GPS. The warden still had about 2 hours of travel ahead of him, but probably not enough time. So Yusong started working on ways to slow him down. First, a military night exercise, a tank flying the Korean flag parked squarely in the road. Then, after the driver found a detour, a cycling group blocking the only remaining route with no alternative around it. The warden, as it happened, used to be president of the local cycling club, so at least he wasn't furious about it. But these were small delays. Yusong knew he was buying minutes, not hours, and that whatever was happening inside that hospital needed to wrap up fast. Inside, a white-haired man stood with his back to the window. Hyunjin said he'd heard his father had collapsed and asked if he was alright. The man explained he was fine, just keeping a low profile while certain people tried to corner him. Hyunjin smiled, said he'd been worried and that he was relieved to hear it. Then the man turned and asked what Hyunjin was doing there at all. He was supposed to be in the reformatory. Hyunjin said he'd been worried, that his father had promised to get him out quickly, and then went silent. The man's response was blunt. Wasn't it natural to be punished after what he'd done? Running around in a group, beating other kids, doing things no decent person should do, and going even further than that, taking someone's life. Even with all his influence in politics and business, that wasn't something you could just make disappear. Hyunjun said he was right. If he'd done something wrong, he should be punished. But then his voice broke. He said that yes, punishment made sense, but that wasn't actually what had happened, because on the day of the incident, he hadn't been alone. So he asked quietly why he was the one being punished, and not Hyung. Hyunjun's childhood wasn't just unhappy, it was a lesson in how a family decides who matters and who doesn't. He and his sister ate at a separate table, with fewer dishes, while his grandfather, father, and older brother Hyung sat apart like royalty. When someone at that table wanted water, his sister was the one who got up to fetch it. She wasn't a guest in that house, she was staff. And when Hyung treated her badly, their grandfather's response was to scold her for not showing enough respect to his grandson. After getting slapped, she was expected to apologize with a smile. Hyunjin remembers Hyung beating him once for getting better grades, furious that now he'd have to study harder to keep up. Their sister stepped in and hit Hyung back, hard enough to draw blood. Hyung ran straight to their grandfather, and for defending her little brother, she was the one who got punished. That night, Hyunjun found her lying on the floor of her room in the dark, face badly bruised, asking him not to turn on the light. They held each other, and she told him that one day their grandfather would see their worth too. So they studied, they worked. Time passed. Hyung, meanwhile, went the other direction entirely. He ran with the wrong crowd, hurt people, and eventually got caught trafficking drugs, and wasn't even slightly worried about it because grandfather would fix it. That was always the answer. Then their sister got into university. Their grandfather seemed proud for exactly one moment before grabbing her by the arms and explaining that as the eldest daughter, she had obligations. Specifically to do whatever was needed to cover for Hyung. If she refused, he'd ask Hyunjun instead. That day, she walked into traffic. Nobody in the family treated it as a tragedy. She ended up in a vegetative state, and they blamed her for every crime Hyung had committed. Hyunjun was still trying to make sense of it when he saw Hyung in the hallway, kicking a boy down a flight of stairs. Hyung had decided this kid was responsible for exposing his crimes, and by extension, for what happened to their sister. The boy died, and Hyung's only reaction was that it was deserved.
Baba, he's a spamming shorty. And if literally
He did know, and so Hyunjun took the fall. He was arrested, and Hyung told him their father, president of the Yuksung group, would get him out quickly. That was a lie. Their father did nothing. Or did. Hyunjun endured everything in silence, telling himself it was punishment for failing to protect his sister. Now he's standing in front of his father, saying exactly that. He accepts responsibility for not protecting her, but Hyung needs to answer for what he actually did. His father's response is that Hyung will inherit the family business, and since Hyunjun also benefited from being born into this family, he should accept the sacrifices that come with it. Sejun has heard enough. He cuts in, tells the man those words shouldn't be said without shame, and pulls Hyunjun toward the door. Semin backs him up. Real family doesn't force sacrifices, and honestly, the reformatory sounds better than this room right now. They don't make it out. Hyung walks in, grandfather at his side. Elsewhere in the reformatory, the night is still moving. Seonil is wandering the corridors, hands in his pockets, thinking. He overhears two inmates talking. One of them has filled his merit points and is already planning for life after release. He wants a vehicle maintenance license, a small garage someday. He even offers his friend a job, on the condition that the friend stops causing trouble and earns his own points first. Seonil recognizes him, Ha Sung-chol, who came in acting like the world owed him something. Now the guy has a 5-year plan. Seonil finds himself thinking that maybe what actually changes a young person isn't an adult with authority. It's another young person who figured something out first. Nearby, someone else is moving through the building, watching and waiting until the vice director steps away. Now might be the right time to start. Back at the hospital, the guards are still posted at the door. Hyung is surprised to see Hyunjun outside the reformatory. Their father tries to smooth things over, but Hyunjun makes clear he didn't want to be here either. He came because he had to. Hyung, unbothered, mentions almost in passing that he beat someone up while drinking, but nobody knows it was him yet. Their grandfather moves toward Hyunjun immediately, framing it as another opportunity to do his brother a favor. Then Hyung notices Semin. He doesn't think, he just grabs her, says he likes her style. Sejun goes rigid. Semin doesn't hesitate. She swings her helmet directly into Hyung's face and sends him flying. Sejun and Hyunjun stare. So do the grandfather and the father. Semin looks down at Hyung, and in a voice that leaves no room for interpretation, asks where exactly he thought he was putting his hand, and whether he wants to find out what comes next. The grandfather's reaction to Semin knocking his grandson away is immediate. He starts screaming at her, calling her every name he can think of. Semin doesn't flinch. She shrugs it off and points out the obvious. His grandson had his hands on her, and apparently the old man missed that part entirely. Both the grandfather and Hyung's father are stunned by how she talks back, and they want to know exactly how she was raised. Semin gives them a straight answer. Her parents divorced early, she was homeschooled, and she learned the basics. Don't fight with your siblings, share, know when to give ground. She then notes, without much warmth, that the prodigy Hyung seems to have skipped all of that. The grandfather admits his hearing isn't great, and asks his son to translate. His son doesn't bother. He just points at the door and tells them to leave while he's still being polite about it. That's when Hyung gets up and makes it clear they're not going anywhere. He grabs an IV stand and swings it at Semin. Sejun panics. The grandfather, meanwhile, is practically cheering. The stand is about to connect with Semin's face, and then the scene cuts. In the detention facility, one of two boys doing maintenance work steps out to use the bathroom. The other keeps working, opens up a fan unit, and finds nothing wrong with the wiring. He assumes his friend is back when he hears someone enter the room. He keeps talking, says he hopes his friend will look after the maintenance crew once they're released, since he's the only one he trusts. He notices the silence, wonders if his friend got emotional. Before he can turn around, something heavy connects with the back of his head. Back at the hospital, the guards hold their posts. Hyung is furious, swearing and swinging, but his brother has stepped between him and Semin. Hyunjun says he's not leaving because he's done watching people around him get hurt. Hyung raises the stand again and asks if his little brother needs to be disciplined too. Sejun moves to intervene. Then someone else gets there first. It's their father, and he slaps Hyung clean across the face. The grandfather can't believe what he just saw. He shouts his son's name. Hyunjun stares. The grandfather starts hitting his own son